In the 1990s, the NBA thought it had found its next icon. Not just another star, but the future. A 6'7" point guard with the handle of a street legend, the vision of Magic Johnson, and the flair of a Hollywood blockbuster. His name? Anfernee Penny Hardaway. He didn't just play the game. He changed the way we looked at it. He was electric, effortless, and magnetic. Kids wore his shoes, adults watched his commercials, and the league was ready to build around him. For a brief moment, he was on top of the world, and he made it look easy. But then, just as quickly as he rose, something happened. Something that not only slowed him down, but completely erased him from the spotlight. He wasn't just beaten by injuries. He was betrayed by the system, by timing, and by fate itself. One year, he was the face of the NBA. A few years later, he was just another name on a roster, quietly fading into the background. So how does a player this special seemingly disappear from history? Why don't we hear his name mentioned alongside the legends of the game? What really went wrong behind the scenes? And could anyone have saved him from the fall? This is not just a story of a basketball player. It's a story about potential, pressure, and pain. It's about how greatness can be taken for granted and how easily stars are forgotten. This is the untold tragedy of Penny Hardaway. Anfernee Dion Penny Hardaway arrived on the scene on July 18, 1971, in Memphis, Tennessee, a city rich in culture but often marked by hardship. Raised in the Binghamton neighborhood, one of Memphis' tougher areas, Penny grew up without his father and was raised primarily by his grandmother, Louise Hardaway, who he affectionately called Mama. She worked multiple jobs and instilled in him discipline, humility, and a strong work ethic. Penny's childhood was far from easy, but even in those early years, the basketball court became his escape and his sanctuary. By the time he reached high school, Penny was already considered a basketball prodigy. At Treadwell High School in Memphis, he averaged over 36 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists per game as a senior. His performances drew national attention, and he was named a Parade All-American, one of the highest honors in high school basketball. But just as his future was taking shape, a tragedy almost derailed it. He was shot in the foot during a robbery while helping a friend. Doctors feared it might end his career before it even began, but Penny fought back, recovered, and continued to chase greatness. Staying loyal to his roots, Penny enrolled at Memphis State University, today known as the University of Memphis, where he put on a show for his hometown crowd. His rare combination of height, ball handling, and vision made him a nightmare matchup for any defender. In college, he averaged 20 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists per game, and was a finalist for the Naismith Player of the Year award. He wasn't just a scorer. He was a complete floor general with a basketball IQ beyond his years. And after sitting out for the 1990-91 season due to academic ineligibility, he returned for his junior season and put up averages of 22 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals per game. And after the season, he declared for the 1993 NBA Draft. The 1993 NBA Draft was a pivotal moment in his life. The Golden State Warriors selected him with the 3rd overall pick, but he was quickly traded to the Orlando Magic in exchange for the number 1 pick, Chris Webber. It was a controversial move at the time, and Orlando fans booed the decision during the draft. But that sentiment changed very fast. Teaming up with the rising superstar Shaquille O'Neal, Penny became the perfect backcourt complement to Shaq's dominant inside presence. He wasn't just a rookie adjusting to the league. He looked like he belonged from day one. In his debut season, Penny averaged 16 points, 6 assists, and 4 rebounds per game. Eye-popping numbers for a rookie, and he helped lead the Magic to a 50-win season. His mix of size, speed, and court awareness was unlike anything the league has seen since the days of Magic Johnson. He made the all-rookie first team, and more importantly, gave Orlando a taste of real championship potential. With Penny running the show and Shaq dominating the paint, the NBA had a new duo to fear and a new star to worship. The rise of Penny Hardaway wasn't just about stats or highlights, though. It was the story of a hometown kid who defied the odds, carried the city on his back, and rose to the national stage with grace, flash, and a style that made fans believe they were watching something special. The following season, the 1994-95 season, was where Penny truly broke out. He was named an NBA All-Star starter, earned All-NBA first-team honors, and averaged nearly 21 points and 7 assists per game. With Penny and Shaq at the helm, the Magic won a franchise record 57 games and made it all the way to the NBA Finals. In the playoffs, they shocked the basketball world by eliminating Michael Jordan's Bulls. Though they lost to the Rockets in the finals, Penny was spectacular, averaging 25 points and 8 assists and shooting 50% from the field. In the 1995-96 season, Penny took his game to another level. With Shaq injured early in the season, Penny stepped up, leading the Magic to a 17-5 start and eventually a 60-win season. He was again named an All-Star starter, earned his second All-NBA first-team selection, and finished third in MVP voting, averaging 21 points, 7 assists, and nearly 2 steals per game. The Magic would return to the Eastern Conference Finals, but were eliminated by the 72-10 Bulls, led by the fully returned Michael Jordan. In the 1996-97 season, Shaq left for the Lakers, leaving Penny as the lone superstar in Orlando. And despite lingering pain, he averaged 20 points and led the team to the playoffs and delivered one of the most legendary individual playoff performances you'll ever see, scoring 42 and 41 points in back-to-back elimination games against the Miami Heat. So was this actually the next Magic Johnson, the player the NBA would build its future around? Well, it certainly looked that way, because even without Shaq, he was still doing his thing. And what made Penny so unique wasn't just his size or his skills, it was how effortlessly he made the game look. At 6'7", he could post up smaller guards, blow past bigger ones, and deliver passes few players could even see. His crossover was smooth, his mid-range jumper was lethal, and his unselfishness made everyone around him better. He brought a graceful dominance that made the game look so easy. You didn't just watch Penny play, you watched him conduct, control, orchestrate. And while his game captivated basketball purists, his personality won over the mainstream media. Nike turned him into a marketing icon with their groundbreaking Lil Penny campaign, featuring a hilarious puppet sidekick voiced by Chris Rock. These commercials weren't just popular, they became cultural events. Penny's face was everywhere. His signature shoes flew off store shelves. He was cool, marketable, and adored by fans of all ages. For a moment, it felt like he had it all: the talent, the team, the spotlight. So how does a player with seemingly everything become someone the world forgets? That's where this story takes a heartbreaking turn. At his peak, Penny stood at the center of the NBA universe. But by the late 1990s, that spotlight had dimmed, and behind the scenes, his body was quietly breaking down. In 1996, everything changed. During a playoff game against the Detroit Pistons, Penny landed awkwardly when Joe Dumars hit him in the back of his knee. Feeling the pain in his knee wouldn't go away, he was initially brushing it off as manageable, and it turned out to be much worse. Doctors diagnosed him with a severe cartilage issue that required microfracture surgery, an extremely high-risk procedure at the time. The operation was so intense, many players who underwent it never returned to form. And for a player whose game relied on fluidity, explosiveness, and control, it was devastating. He eventually returned to the court after surgery, but something was different. The quick first step wasn't as sharp. The agility that once made defenders look helpless began to fade. He could still see the game unfold like a chessboard, but physically, he couldn't move his pieces the same way. The fluid, joyful rhythm he once played with had turned into a more slower, stiffer struggle. And as Penny was dealing with the greatest battle of his career, his health, the Orlando Magic were falling apart around him. Shaquille O'Neal had already left to join the Lakers, a departure that rocked the foundation of the franchise. What was once a dream duo with Shaq and Penny was now just Penny alone, tasked with leading a crumbling team on one good leg. In Orlando, once the league's most promising young franchise, was now unstable. Head coaches came and went, role players shuffled, chemistry dissolved, and worst of all, Penny's relationship with the front office and fans began to deteriorate. Now, he still had moments. There were nights where the old Penny flickered to life, hitting clutch shots, dishing out no-look passes, dazzling with skill and confidence. But those moments were rare, few and far in between. The injuries didn't just hurt him physically, they chipped away at his rhythm, his confidence, and eventually his role in the league. In 1999, the Orlando Magic traded him to the Phoenix Suns, hoping a fresh start would help reignite his career. It was a big move. The Suns paired Penny with all-star guard Jason Kidd, branding them as Backcourt 2000, a futuristic duo meant to bring Phoenix back to relevance. On paper, it looked like a match made in heaven. Kidd's vision and speed alongside Penny's scoring and versatility. But on the court, injuries continued to haunt Penny. He missed 29 games in his first season, then 43 games the next, and then nearly the entire 2001 season. It was like the more he tried to play, the longer he stayed off the court. It was like his mind still wanted to play the game, but his body didn't. So what do you do? What do you do when your mind still sees the game, but your body refuses to keep up? Penny bounced around the league, and after that, he was traded to the New York Knicks, where he was a shell of his former self. Injuries had robbed him of his lift, his speed, and even his minutes. Coaches stopped building around him. He wasn't the star anymore. He was just another name on his scouting report. A bench player with a legendary past, and a body that couldn't live up to it. He had a brief reunion with Shaquille O'Neal in 2007 with the Miami Heat, a quiet attempt at a comeback that ended in just a few games. There were no highlight reels, no farewell tour, just silence. Penny quietly faded from the court that once adored him. How does a player go from carrying a franchise to being forgotten? Penny's story isn't one of failure, it's one of cruel timing and a body that couldn't match the spirit inside it. He didn't just lose games, he lost time. He lost the chance to see how far his greatness could have truly gone. And fans still wonder, what if Penny had stayed healthy? Would he have won the title? Would he have joined Kobe and Shaq in LA? Would he be in the Hall of Fame today? We will never know. Not the injuries, not the stats, but the unknowable greatness is the true tragedy of Penny Hardaway. After the NBA spotlight faded, Penny Hardaway could have walked away from basketball entirely. Instead, he chose a different path, one rooted in purpose, humility, and giving back. In 2011, Penny quietly returned to the neighborhood that raised him. When his close friend and former teammate Desmond Merriweather was diagnosed with colon cancer, Penny stepped in to coach at his old middle school, Lester Middle School in Memphis. But this wasn't a publicity stunt, it was a mission. Penny didn't just coach for wins. He established mandatory tutoring, setting high standards for his players both on and off the court. Under his leadership, Lester finished 28-3, winning the West Tennessee State title in a thrilling 58-57 victory. For Penny, that season wasn't just about basketball. It was about giving young kids in tough neighborhoods the same hope that once saved him. In 2018, Penny took the next step and returned to his alma mater, the University of Memphis. This time as head coach of the Memphis Tigers. The city embraced him instantly. Within a year, he not only led the Tigers to the NIT, but also delivered the top-ranked recruiting class in the nation, a group that included James Wiseman, DJ Jeffries, and Boogie Ellis, all of whom decommitted from powerhouse programs to play for Penny. He wasn't just coaching. He was inspiring a new generation to believe in Memphis again. Over the next few seasons, Penny turned Memphis into a competitive force. In 2023, he guided the Tigers to the American Athletic Conference Championship, and a spot in the NCAA tournament. There, they were controversially eliminated by Florida Atlantic. Undeterred, Penny came back stronger in the 2024-25 season. He led Memphis to an outright regular season conference title, finishing with a dominant 16-2 record in conference play. Through it all, Penny never chased the spotlight. He stayed rooted in his city, shaping lives the way mentors once shaped his. His coaching career isn't just a second act. It's proof that even when the game takes something from you, you can still give something back. Penny Hardaway's influence wasn't just confined to the hardwood. He was also a key figure in pop culture during the height of his NBA stardom. Even before he entered the league, he and future teammate Shaquille O'Neal starred in the 1994 sports drama Blue Chips, playing college basketball freshmen on a fictional university team. The film gave fans an early glimpse of their on-screen chemistry and helped launch them into the mainstream spotlight. Years later, in 2016, ESPN's 30 for 30 series released the acclaimed documentary titled This Magic Moment, going through the rise and fall of the mid-90s Orlando Magic teams, led by Penny and Shaq. The film offered a reflective, emotional look at what could have been, and served as a reminder of how magical that brief era truly was. Through film, commercials, and storytelling, Penny Hardaway's legacy crossed into entertainment, cementing his status as not just a player, but as a symbol of a time when basketball felt larger than life. In the mid-90s, Penny Hardaway wasn't just dominating on the court, he was becoming a marketing phenomenon. As his stardom exploded in Orlando, Nike recognized something rare, a player who not only had elite game, but also had the charisma and cool factor to become a brand of his own. Their answer? Lil Penny, voiced by comedian Chris Rock. The miniature puppet version of Penny starred in a series of unforgettable commercials that blended comedy, swagger, and creativity. The campaign was more than just clever, it was iconic. Lil Penny trash-talked courtside, flirted with Tyra Banks, and hyped up Penny as if he were the biggest name in the league. It gave fans a unique image of Hardaway, humble on the court, but larger than life off of it. While other players had shoe deals, Penny had something different. He had a full-blown brand identity. The Air Penny sneaker line quickly became one of Nike's most successful basketball lines in the 90s, rivaling even the ever-popular Jordan shoes among young fans. Sleek designs, a bold 1-cent logo, and a strong performance made the sneakers a must-have for hoopers and sneakerheads alike. Each release built Penny's cultural footprint beyond the basketball courts. His shoes became a fashion statement, playground legends and symbols of a player who was changing the game in more ways than one. Penny's success off the court proved that he wasn't just a basketball star, he was a crossover icon. Long before social media, long before YouTube mixtapes, Penny Hardaway was becoming a household name through marketing brilliance and effortless style. He was one of the first NBA players to truly bridge the gap between sports and pop culture, laying the foundation for the kind of athlete brand empires we see today. In just a few years, Penny had become more than a player. He was a movement. In the 90s, few athletes captured the spirit of the era quite like Penny Hardaway. He wasn't just a star on the court, he was a symbol of everything cool off it. At a time when basketball, hip-hop, and street fashion were merged into one powerful cultural force, Penny stood right at the intersection. He had the game, the style, and that effortless swagger that made him a natural fit for a generation defined by rhythm and rebellion. Penny's influence wasn't limited to highlight reels. He was featured in music videos, rubbed shoulders with artists in the hip-hop scene, and became a fixture in the fashion culture. What set Penny apart wasn't that he was just good at basketball. It felt like he was one of us. In an era that embraced authenticity, he didn't have to try hard to connect with fans. He walked like a star, but talked like someone from your neighborhood. He wasn't loud or controversial. He was cool in a way that he didn't need to shout. That quiet confidence combined with his sleek game and undeniable presence made him a hero not just to sports fans, but to an entire cultural movement. For many, Penny Hardaway wasn't just a basketball player. He was a cultural icon. He was a reflection of a generation where hip-hop hoops and style collided to redefine what greatness really looked like. His impact lived not only in the box scores, but in the beats, the streets, and the closets of the people who watched him rise. Penny Hardaway was once positioned as the face of the NBA. He had the skills, the looks, the charisma, the commercials. For a time, he was right there with Michael Jordan and Shaquille O'Neal in terms of popularity. But somehow, just a few years later, his name became a whisper, a forgotten chapter in a golden era. How does this truly happen? The truth is, Penny was a victim of timing. As his body broke down, the NBA was entering one of its most explosive phases of star power. Kobe Bryant was ascending rapidly in Los Angeles, inheriting the spotlight from Jordan. Allen Iverson came in like a cultural earthquake. Vince Carter was flying over 7-footers. Steve Nash was redefining pace. Jason Kidd was racking up triple-doubles. These were not just great players. They were durable, consistent, and lucky enough to avoid the injuries that cut Penny down in his prime. Penny's prime really lasted just about 4 or 5 seasons. That's all. In a league where fans measure greatness over decades, Penny's time at the top felt like a shooting star. Brilliant, but brief. He didn't fade because he wasn't talented enough. He faded because the clock ran out too soon. There was no deep playoff runs after the mid-90s, no scoring titles, no MVP campaigns, and no signature movement to cement his name in the game's mythology. He wasn't there long enough to leave footprints that lasted in the public's mind. Then came the evolution of the game itself. The NBA began shifting away from mid-range dominance and post-play. The three-point revolution emerged in the 2000s and the 2010s, transforming how offenses function. Analytics became king, and players were now judged by shooting percentages, spacing metrics, and per 36 numbers. Penny, whose game was based on feel, vision, and rhythm, belonged to a different era. He wasn't a volume three-point shooter. He didn't benefit from the advanced recovery and training system players have today. If he had been born 10 years later, his body might have lasted longer, and his style could have evolved with the times. And unlike many of his contemporaries, Penny didn't have a big comeback moment. Grant Hill managed to revive his career in Phoenix. Tracy McGrady reinvented himself in spurts. Even Derrick Rose, another star derailed by injury, had redemption nights that brought him back into the conversation. But Penny quietly disappeared from the league. No viral moment, no last game standing ovation, no all-star comebacks, no nothing. There's also another reason he's forgotten. He played before the internet era exploded. If Penny had been born just a few years later, his highlights would be everywhere today. His passes, dunks, and footwork would be clipped, edited, and shared millions of times online. Instead, much of his prime is locked in grainy 90s footage, forgotten in the algorithm-driven age of basketball storytelling. So why don't we hear his name anymore? Why doesn't he show up on the top 10 point guards of all time list or jersey retrospectives? Well, because sometimes the world moves on too fast, and it forgets the ones who didn't finish their story properly. But those who truly watched them, those who remember the smooth glides to the rim, the no-look dimes, the icy calm in big moments, they haven't forgotten. People like you that's watching. Even though Penny Hardaway's playing career didn't unfold the way the world expected, his legacy never disappeared. It simply evolved. Penny influenced an entire generation of players who saw in him something new. A 6'7" guard who could control the game like a point guard, score like a wing, and carry himself with poise and professionalism. Stars like Tracy McGrady, Paul George, and others have openly cited Penny as an inspiration. His game redefined what a lead guard could look like. Big, smooth, smart, and unselfish. The league's current wave of tall playmakers owes much of their identity to the trail he blazed. Even after the spotlight faded, Penny Hardaway never walked away from the game. He gave everything. Instead of chasing headlines, he poured his energy into his community, returning to Memphis with a mission beyond basketball. He started by mentoring young athletes at the grassroots level, gradually rising to lead the very program that once launched his own career, the University of Memphis. But coaching, for Penny, was never about reclaiming lost fame. It was about rebuilding hope, shaping futures, and passing down the wisdom forged in his own highs and lows, and giving others a path forward. He quietly cemented a new kind of legacy, one not built on stats, but on impact. But one question still echoes among fans who remembered his prime. What if Penny never got injured? What if he and Shaq stayed in Orlando? Would he be remembered as one of the greatest point guards of all time? Well, that's 3 questions. The truth is, we will never know. That's the most painful part. Still, Penny's story endures, not just as a what if, but as a reminder of how high brilliance can reach. Even if it doesn't last forever, his legacy lives on in the players he inspired, the kids he now coaches, and the fans who still remember what he was at his best. A once-in-a-generation talent who gave us enough to never forget. Penny Hardaway's story is one of brilliance met with heartbreak, a tale of soaring potential interrupted far too soon. For a few fleeting years, he was everything the NBA could have asked for: skill, size, leadership, style, and marketability. He wasn't just a point guard, he was a visionary, someone who made the game look effortless while elevating those around him. But just as he was stepping into greatness, injuries began to chip away at everything he had built, and slowly the spotlight moved on. Yet for those who truly watched, truly remembered, Penny was never just a what if. He was one of the most naturally gifted players the league has ever seen. A smooth, unselfish maestro with the flair of a street legend and the vision of a Hall of Famer. His impact is still felt in the way today's tall guards handle the ball, in the cultural memory of 90s basketball, and in the hearts of fans who never stopped believing in what could he have been. So if you've forgotten or never knew, now's the time. Go back, watch the highlights, study the passes, feel the crowd's energy, and when Penny had the ball in his hands, appreciate the artistry, the poise, the grace, because while injuries may have shortened his prime, they never erased his legacy. Penny Hardaway wasn't just a player, he was a moment, and moments like that deserve to be remembered. But did you know there was an NBA player who had the talent to change the game? A player who could drive past defenders, make ridiculous passes, and even dunk over the best of them. A guy who, despite battling constant injuries, still managed to become one of the most exciting and skilled point guards of his generation. If you want to know about what happened to Baron Davis, just click right here.